What kind of partnerships are you sort of open to? What kind of partnerships are you looking for? If there is an inbound sort of outreach to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're looking for anything that helps grow the audience and then grows our content. So generally that is, like we've had conversations with some countries that want to sort of create, because you can imagine our content goes globally really well. We perform really well in a lot of languages. So, conversations about, investing in a version of us in local market, right? So someone wants to make a long-term investment. It's like, okay, what if you built Dhar Mann Studios in Dubai, right? What would that look like, right? Because we already know the audience is there, and what's the investment contract. Those are interesting conversations. I would say conversations around sort of brand relationships, particularly in that kind of family content space, is interesting to us, particularly long-term ones. Like, we're very equity oriented thinkers. So, you know, we don't really want to build a business like off one-off brand deals. We're really like, we want to get in with a brand, understand their customer journey, understand what the people need, understand what their return on ad spend needs to be, and so really kind of use our footprint to help them drive what they're trying to discover. Those sort of things we look at. And then we're always, because of our footprint, looking at, how do we make original content for other platforms, right? Should we be making content for Hulu or a Netflix or somebody on a global basis? Should we be making vertical dramas? Looking at all those different areas. And then the last place we look is like, as we're scaling, is like, are there M&A opportunities to help us build even a bigger creator studio platform is the other place we look.
Understood. Understood. I'm sure a lot of folks are listening very carefully to everything that you're saying, especially on the partnerships piece. But again, this one of the things that we've actually seen is just a lot of interest in cross-border partnerships, especially on our platform, because it's essentially suited for that. The one element which I was curious about was in terms of what your view is on micro series. There's been a lot of buzz about super short episodes. Is that something that you're dabbling with already, or?
So we explore it, right? It's an emerging market in the US. It's obviously huge in China. It's a pretty established players in market in terms of the Chinese players who've been at it for a while and are sort of spending on it. We think it's a very interesting model, but we're trying to figure out the right way for us to enter it.
Understood. Okay, that's fair. And again, China is perhaps the biggest market, and we're just beginning to warm up to those ideas here. One slight sort of sidebar conversation. When you look on the other side of the fence now, to where you were, on the traditional side, from your prior experience, what do you think is broken? I mean, if you said, is it the fact that box office is broken? Is it the fact that cable and that entire monetization of pay TV is broken? Clearly, the things are not in the right spot. Are you hearing that from, I'm sure, a lot of your colleagues, ex-colleagues?
Yeah. I mean, usually the way these things happen when there's sort of tectonic change in industry is they happen slowly and then all at once. That's
Yes.
essentially what happened here. Like, it's not like people in the industry didn't know that digital was coming for 20 years. It's not like they didn't watch newspapers get decimated, right? And so what I think is broken is, well, let me start with what's fixed. First of all, there is not less content being consumed, only more content is being consumed. So there's never been a better time as a creative to have an opportunity for your vision to get out. Like, you have the means and mechanism. That's exciting. I think the challenge is that the historical structures were all set up with some sort of either political or geographic or structural sort of monopoly, duopoly that sort of made the system work. And by the way, I'm going to sound like economists, extracted a lot of rents from the system, as they like to say, right? The cable model, for example, was a beautiful double revenue model. But the media companies, of which I was at one, we broke it, right? The consumer experience started getting worse. It's like all of a sudden you watch an hour of television and 22 minutes is commercials. The cost per cable thing is, but had cable thought about itself as a consumer product, like, well, the kind of per capita cost needs to come down over time and the consumer experience needs to get better, then we'd probably all still have cable, right? Like, because that cable wasn't terrible, but until streaming came along, you could have on demand. All of a sudden it's like, well, this is terrible. But if cable had just done on demand, like, Netflix and Hulu, none of these things would exist. So part of it's self-inflicted because of the structural problems. I always say it's not because there's not smart people. Like I never met a smart person, all the CEOs I worked for who didn't know what's going on. I always say this is a fiduciary problem, is that the incentive structure for any business going through change, when it's incentivized on quarter to quarter performance,
Yeah.
disincentivize risk and innovation.